What is good, guys? It's Rey-Jay back with another video, and in this one I want to break down what's going on with Tesla, SPY, Nvidia, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. I'm going to talk about the economic data coming out for tomorrow, what's going on with the earnings that just came out, what you should be watching for as time progresses. But before I begin the devil's information, before I get into any more details, let me just mention a couple of things. I am firstly not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Webull link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Webull and deposit $500 into the account, you are guaranteed 20 free stocks. If you deposit $25,000 or more, you're guaranteed 75 free stocks, and the offer ends in just 2 days. Anyways, looking at Tesla, you guys can see we have this very nice double top-like formation. This is forming kind of like a cup, but the question is, will it be a cup and handle, or is this going to be like a head and shoulders that's also forming like right here? I'll be breaking down a lot of setups just like this over the next couple of minutes, but I first have to talk about another factor that's going to affect the market. So the market is impacted by technicals, is impacted by institutions and buyers and sellers and manipulation and all these different things. But another big factor that's used was going to be the data that comes out on almost a daily basis. And the data is going to be very, very important for the markets as we tend to see big reactions thanks to it. And we tend to see big funds move money based off what they see in the data. So this is used as a catalyst, as an excuse to move markets around. And that's why I want to break down why this is so significant. So tomorrow is going to be Wednesday, February 28th, okay? At 8:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, we have the GDP growth rate coming out. We also have retail inventories and more GDP numbers. Now, GDP is very important for understanding how our economy is looking. The lower it is in terms of GDP growth, the more likely it is that we're seeing more contraction and more effects from rate hikes. So the effects from rate hikes tend to be very delayed by about 12 to 18 months. So it's taking time for us to see this really affecting our economy, and we'll be watching to see if there are any changes and such that happen. Now, the consensus in the forecast is a 3.3% GDP growth rate for the second estimate. This is going to be for Q4. We'll be watching to see if that ends up being the case, and we'll see how things end up going from there. So make sure you watch for this an hour before the market opens at 8:30 a.m. This is going to cause a big move, so watch for that very carefully. Now, on top of this, we also have the 17-week bill auction coming out at 11:30 a.m. We also have Bostic, Collins, and Williams from the Fed giving speeches starting from noon going into 1 p.m. basically. So that's very important. We have a lot of data coming out in the morning, then a bunch of Fed speakers later on. But the most important things are the things I highlighted right over here, the GDP numbers. Another factor for the markets are going to be earnings. We don't really have any major earnings to affect the entire market, but we could see individual stocks and some sectors be impacted by these. We have some energy stocks announcing their earnings. They just came out like right now. We also have more coming out in the morning, not to mention TJ Maxx and a lot of like retail coming out tomorrow in the afternoon. So we just had Devon Energy announcing its earnings. It actually beat by 3 cents. Revenue also topped estimates, which is not bad whatsoever. Also, a very positive EPS revision, which is not bad as well. So, some good news for that. On top of this, I just want to mention that the Fear and Greed Index is currently at extreme greed. This doesn't mean that the market is done yet, but generally, this is when you want to become a lot more careful. I wouldn't necessarily use this as an indicator to call the top just yet. We have to wait and see because we'll have to see which direction SPY and these other tickers start running in. But one thing I do want to note is that when you look at market momentum, it's very greedy, but the VIX down here is still at neutral, testing the 50 daily moving average. We'll see if this bounces off this or not. If it does get a bounce, it could be bearish for the markets. If not, it is what it is. I do want to note that the VIX is also very manipulated right now to affect option premiums, which do hurt those 0 day to expirations. And that's what these market makers make money off of. So just be very careful in playing those. With the VIX kind of like following the market, that could hurt premiums. So for Tesla, what do I see for this? But we'll start off with this and start talking about SPY. Tesla has a possible cup and handle like structure if you're bullish. So if you are bullish, you want to see it come down. Maybe it could come down a little lower to like 198, 197.5. And it has to try to bounce very soon. We have to get a bounce somewhere near 198 or lower, try to bounce, make our way back up above 202.5. If that happens, this thing is going to be pushing up higher for at least 207 and possibly even 212. So just to draw it out, I have this tool right here just to show you what this might end up looking like. Watch and see if this double top leads to this inverse, not this inverse, but this nice like reversal pattern. And if this ends up leading to some kind of breakout. So are we about to see this thing break to the upside like this? That's the more bullish case for Tesla. And if we get some good GDP numbers, there's a good chance that this could actually help Tesla achieve this. Now, at the same time, don't just solely look at the bullish case. We also have support to be watched for at 198, not to mention 195 to 196 and 192.5. So, in my opinion, if you look at this also resembles kind of like a head and shoulders like structure that could be developing on Tesla. So this is a little bit risky simultaneously. If the GDP numbers are not too good, they're lower than expected or something. What if Tesla does something like this where it pops during the pre-market and the GDP numbers come out and Tesla starts sinking like this? You could also argue we have like a head and shoulders here, and Tesla has like a lot more downside coming because of that. So if we lose like 197.5 and we see this like right shoulder form, there's also a risk of the more bearish case, which is going to be Tesla breaking down. Now, I wish I was a fortune teller. I wish I was a genie and I knew what the GDP numbers would look like. And I could tell you exactly what's going to happen. But in this case, I can't really give you guys that certainty because it depends on the GDP numbers and stuff like that. So if you see people on YouTube saying, oh, the chart says we're going to go up or down, don't solely trade based off the chart. We have to wait for the data to come out. Then we can see what happens to the chart after that. So that's my view. I just want to give you guys that warning. My view is very different from a lot of people on YouTube. I'm telling you, don't just solely look at the charts. Wait for the data to come out, then we'll see what happens. But I did give you guys the bullish and bearish cases to watch for so you have a heads up. Now, what about for SPY? How is SPY looking, in my opinion? From a technical standpoint, it's showing some life. Now, you could argue that we had a 5 wave Elliott wave count sequence that ended up developing. You guys could actually see it right here. And this is like kind of like our impulse wave. So we had this wave 1 down here. Wave 2 came up here. This is like the big wave 3, and we had wave 4, and this is like 5 if you count those separately. So you could argue that, there's a temporary bottom forming here as SPY held 505. And sure, you could try doing that, but there's nothing guaranteed about that because the thing is, we bounced off 505, and you could see how well it's respecting these levels, hitting 507. If we're bullish, okay, if we're bullish on SPY, you want to see some decent GDP numbers and decent reaction and a break of 507. If we break that, we have to try to break this high right here at 507. I'm sorry, 508.75 around there. If we break this high, then it's going to turn back to bullish and start pushing back up for a full recovery. If we're bearish, you want to see it reject and come down to 505 and eventually lose that. If we lose 505, expect 503.5 and eventually 502. So be very careful on SPY. We'll just have to see what it does from here. Onto the QQQ. I just want to mention that the QQQ is very indecisive. Okay. It's just going back and forth almost 3 days in a row, back and forth price action. If the GDP numbers cause the market to pump, QQQ could break 438. We're going to be testing 439.25 right about here. And then we have 440 above that for a breakout. For bearish, I want to see it basically lose 436 and then 434, and a bigger drop is going to be coming. So we'll see what happens with the QQQ as we're still range bound. For other tickers out there, we also have Aapl. Aapl is showing some life for a bounce, but I wouldn't turn it too bullish just yet. Now, we could also take a trend line like this. I was actually doing this earlier. Just to double check, you could take one like this and kind of connect these lines very, very nicely. So take this one, kind of connect them like this. I could even adjust this just a bit, but it doesn't really matter. Right now, I would just say that I'd be very careful with Aapl, especially at this area. If we were to like adjust this a little bit more, we could technically try this. But either way, it's like this is like kind of where the high is. We got like rejections off these two levels, and now we're gonna be watching to see how Aapl does from here. So it doesn't have to be perfect, right? This line right here, but what I want to let you know is that Aapl is showing some life. We got this little bounce thanks to some bullish news that came out, came back down. To be bullish, we have to do this. We have to see this thing come down and we have to try to break out like this. This is how we turn bullish, get up to 185, establish a higher low. That's the more bullish case. If we're bearish, Apple has to flop on its face, attempts to rebound, and starts sinking like this. If we lose 181.36, a bigger drop is coming down here. If we lose 180, 178 is our last point of hope. So we'll just have to see what the GDP numbers cause. I'll just be watching the levels. There is some hope for Apple to establish, in my opinion, a higher low and then try to break out. But just to be safe, I'm going to just wait and see. Now we have, excuse me. Now we have the king, Nvidia. Nvidia, from a technical standpoint, is showing some weakness. Okay, I'm going to be honest with you. If you look at it right here, you will see that it's trying to hold this support around 785. If we lose that, watch 782. And below that, we have 776 coming. If that fails us, there's 771, followed by very close to about the 765 area. Resistance, make sure you watch 790. And if you break that, we have 795 and then 800. This is downtrending overall, right? We had this high here, we came down, lower high, we came down. So it is on a downtrend right now. We also have a potential bearish wedge forming. So this could actually drag the market down. But just to be safe, we'll see how Nvidia does. Technically speaking, it's looking bearish. From a technical standpoint, yes, it looks a little bit more bearish to me. From a fundamental standpoint, obviously Nvidia is a strong company. You could argue that it's overvalued or not. That's up to you. And when it comes to GDP data, I don't know what that's going to cause for Nvidia, but let me just say that technicals do look more bearish on Nvidia for now. The chart looks a bit more bearish for now. We'll see if the GDP numbers align with that. With that being said, I'm just going to be very quick with this part. I'm just going to talk about a couple more. Rivian managed to break the notorious 11. I do expect it to push a little higher. I think it's more likely from a technical standpoint it reaches 11.52, but that depends on the GDP numbers. There's a chance it might actually pop a bit and then we'll see if it rejects or not, but it might have a little bit more upside coming. Yesterday I said SoFi should be hitting $9 soon, reaching that imbalance. When you zoom out of the chart, right here we have this imbalance at 9. That's where we've gone to. It could even go all the way up towards this like 9.4 area, technically speaking, but we'll see what the GDP numbers cause. From a technical standpoint, looks a bit more bullish. ARM looks kind of bearish, but we have to watch for confirmation. If it loses 137, a bigger drop is coming to 135. It does look a bit more bearish, but just to be safe, we'll see what the GDP numbers cause. Super micro, I know a lot of people are into this one. This is looking a little bearish. If we lose 833, 800 is coming next. If we break out, watch 863. If we break that, we're going to be pushing. Overall, we're seeing some weakness on the 4-hour time frame. And with this weakness that's developing on the charts, I just want everyone to be kind of careful. This does favor the bears, but just to be safe, we'll see what the data causes. For Palantir, Palantir is attempting to break out. This is showing some life. It does look to me like it's going to get back up to 25. That's the most likely possibility. But once again, we'll see if the GDP numbers help this. For now, I do see some more potential. Russell 2000, I told you, looked bullish. We're approaching 204.7 and eventually 205. It might try to push a little higher, so just be careful. And then on top of this, I just want to let everyone know that the GDP numbers could affect it, but it does look a little bullish. Microsoft came down to our target of 405, went a little bit lower than that. Now it's trying to rebound, but in order for it to rebound, it has to try to break above 408 basically. If we break 408, we could be pushing for 410 plus. If we reject off 408, we're going to be returning back down to 405. So watch that as resistance. That's going to be our 1520 EMA. We'll see how it does there. GDP numbers will determine where this thing goes. So watch that very carefully. Do we break 408 and push, or do we reject off it and come back down? Watch for that tomorrow. For AMD, we're showing some life. We're trying to bounce right here. We're going to be looking at this resistance at 180. If it tries to push higher, it is showing some strength, so there's a good chance it may continue from a technical standpoint, but we'll see if anything else aligns. Please be careful when trading the VIX or even when you're like trading in general, because the VIX is dropping with the market is very manipulated, and we have this gap down here, so it might come down a little lower. This was dropping with the markets today, so it just goes to show you want to be very careful. The VIX could be very manipulated, so be careful when trying to trade it and just watch your technicals just for like safety reasons because it doesn't always move like it normally should. This is actually very rare, if anything. The dollar is trying to push a little bit. If we do, excuse me, if we do break 103.84, look for a push for 104, and we'll see how it does from here. For Coinbase, we're going to be looking for, basically, we're going to be looking for this thing to be testing 192. If it loses that, 185 is next. If we bounce off this, we're going to be pushing for around 210. So we'll see how it does here. There is a risk of this coming down a little lower before it tries to bounce, but just be careful. So I think it might drop a little bit more and then try to bounce after that, thanks to the SEC's regulations and helping it out. We'll see how it does. Yesterday, I said that Google has support at 138 and 136. We actually bounced off 183.5. If we continue to push, if we get above 140, watch 141.78, then this 143 area. It is looking a little bullish. It might try to push higher, so we'll just have to wait and see. For Amazn, we're on a slight downtrend. If we end up losing support right here at 172.9, our next target is going to be around 171.74. We are looking a little bit more bearish on Amazon. I could see it dropping a little bit more from a technical standpoint, so watch for that 171 test. But just to be safe, like I said, watch the GDP numbers. Meta looks a little bullish to me. It looks like it might try to push up towards 490, then 494. If you're bearish, you want to see it lose 482, but overall it looks like it's going to try to push. This does favor bulls slightly more. So there's a chance that we might see some big tech stocks try to push like Meta. But once again, GDP numbers, don't forget about that, and we'll see how it goes from there. All right, guys, that is it for the video. Thank you all so much for listening. Hopefully this video was helpful. I am kind of late today. Have a great day. Take care, and I'll see you guys very soon tomorrow morning. Get ready for the big data. Do what you have to do. And remember, always remain very patient and persistent, when it comes to trading and everything like that. All right. Have a great day, guys. Enjoy your evening. And I'll see you guys tomorrow on the next one. Thank you and peace out.